be your rice. Say you be bread, oh, then I go be your butter. Say you be tea, then I go be your sugar. But now when you be my TV, then you have to do wash it. Follow, follow me, follow, follow me, follow me, follow, wash it. See, in the television, it can take you for the for the best information, news, update, and sport news. We are so educating, entertainment, now we be the best. All over the world, you be good, wash it. Say you be say, then I go be your rice. Say you be bread, oh, then I go be your butter. Say you be tea, then I go be your sugar. But now when you be my TV, you have to do wash it. Follow me, follow me, wash it. Ekiti Television, taking you further.
Your heart, you can't get up, you can't stay down. You think this must be the end of the line, but I'm here by your side, holding on, holding tight. Come on friend, let's move on to a higher place. Jello, Oma ki sojo, Chibolu bori ni wa, Ao bori dandan.
When we talk of a democracy that is truly people-oriented, the Dr. John Fayemi administration has more than delivered. In the implementation of his administration's 8-point agenda, a lot of ground has been covered. Running of a participatory and all-inclusive government, infrastructure development for the good of our people, modernizing agriculture to create jobs for the teeming youths in the state, a positive turnaround of our education sector, free and qualitative health care for children, the physically challenged, pregnant women, and the aged, resuscitation of moribund industry for the economic revival of our state, development of our tourist centers to international standard, gender equality and empowerment, under which our elderly receive monthly allowances. This is truly the era of see and feel. There is no doubt JKF is piloting Ekiti to a new level. Our leader, you continue to draw the line between selfless service and selfish leadership. Ilufemiloye Ekiti will never forget your legacy. JKF, the vision continues.
Another beautiful day with you on your popular program, Meet Your Governor, a program designed for accountability and good governance. As usual, we already have our regular guest seated, Dr. Fayemi, the Governor of Ekiti State. Your Excellency, thanks for coming.
Good evening, Olu. Good evening, viewers at home.
And I took my time not to say Executive Governor of Ekiti State.
You got it right this time.
Also in the studio, we have other two of my colleagues that will be participating on the program. We have Yakub Popola, another Popola in the house from Daily Independence. Thanks for coming.
Good evening, viewers.
And another colleague of mine from MITV, Abidemi Sekiro.
Good evening, viewers, and you're welcome to the program.
Need to remind you that this program is live on EKTV, and if you're on Star Times, you can tune into 113. You see us there. Also, FM 91.5. You listen to us there, and Progress FM and NTA, all in Ekiti. As you know, the program is segmented. The first segment, we the governor will take questions from the panelists, and then we open the port for you this time around to send text messages, no calls. And Your Excellency, I will start from the national level, the national conference. And when it started, many Nigerians were skeptical about it, but before we know it, governors from the southwest, they said they are going to participate. And last week you sent names of credible Ekiti indigenes, which speaks a lot. That means, and I want to ask you now, Your Excellency, do you think something good can come out of this dialogue?
I hope something good will come out of the dialogue. My position and the position of the governors, at least the governors from my own party in the Southwest, has always been clear. And it is that it is good to talk, and Nigerians do need to talk. Whether this is the right time to do the talking is something that we don't think is the right time, and we also do not think it gives enough room to accomplish the task before we move into electioneering season. And this may well end up being a distraction. However, the people have been on and on about the need to restructure the Nigerian state. So beyond politics, Nigerians from all walks of life have expressed the necessity for Nigerians to come together and dialogue and build consensus around a new direction for Nigeria that would make it more transparent, that would make it more accountable, that would make it more responsive to the yearnings of the Nigerian people. And if that is going to be the product of this coming together, so be it. The only reason why people felt that we were not going to participate was because we expressed skepticism at the sudden Damascene conversion of Mr. President and his party that had always been very, very dismissive of the campaign for a sovereign national conference. But then again, if somebody who doesn't believe in something comes full circle to believe in it, do you then suspend your own belief, you the original proponents of this agenda? We think not. And that's why I made that statement that I made on behalf of the governors of the APC, not just the governors of the Southwest, that for us, we're not just governors over members of our party. We're governors over all of our people, and we owe them a duty not to deprive them of the opportunity to participate in these discussions. Whether it results in something conclusive is neither here nor there. We've had several conferences from the 1960 conference. We had one in 2005 under President Olusegun Obasanjo, and that was truncated on the altar of the third term agenda. So there are many things in that particular conference document that remains very useful, that can still be incorporated in the outcome of this conference. But whatever it is, at the end of the day, the people who are going into this conference, as I told our own delegation when they visited me this morning in our governor's office, they must determine what the ground norm is. What is the enabling law that is being adopted for this conference? And two, what is the guarantee that what comes out of this conference is going to be is going to be fed into the Constitution of Nigeria? These are issues that must be ironed out, but as our people would always say, I simbel idasi. I'm glad you used the term credible for the people who have been chosen. They've not been chosen to represent any partisan interest. These are people who are known in Ekiti for their consistent readiness to defend the interest of Ekiti State. And I believe they're going to do a good job of it. The feedback we've got also echoes what you have said, that they're credible, and we would assist them. If it produces a great result, all the better for our people. We hope it does. But even if it doesn't, it's going to be an experience that will enrich us. And we will utilize that experience when our people come back home. But they are not representing themselves. On Wednesday, we're going to be putting a whole team of Ekiti stakeholders together. Elders, students, market women, artisans, academics. They're all going to gather to judge with them about the message they are sending them with to Abuja on behalf of Ekiti State.
Yes, Yakub.
We learned there's going to be Ekiti consensus, which these delegates are going to, articulate when they get there. So can you let us in?
I just talked about it.
Yeah.
That on Wednesday we have requested a meeting of diverse interest in Ekiti. The beauty of Ekiti is that by and large Ekiti people, they have the same sense of where they want the country to be. We don't want to go into slavery. We want to maintain our independence, that is our autonomy, even if we have a return to regionalism. We do not want to lose our statehood within the context of that regionalism. There are other things that are of importance to the people. The revenue sharing formula is one critical issue. There is a considerable discussion around even the nature of governance and the relations between state and the federal. Those are the issues that would come up, and we have invited everybody, traditional rulers, we've invited elder statespeople, we've invited students, we've invited artisans, market women, trade organizations, academic institutions, politicians of all color to come and also articulate the positions. And we hope that all of them will be there in the large numbers to share their thoughts with them. But don't also forget, there is something known as the Yoruba agenda, which has just been agreed in Ibadan a couple of days ago, when the leaders of thought from all of the Yoruba speaking area met. It would seem to me that that would also form part of what would be debated and upon which some level of consensus will be reached, that our own delegation can take with them to the national conference when it begins in Abuja in a couple of weeks.
Yes, Bidemi, your turn.
Mr. Governor, sir, we know that some delegations are going to Abuja. We want to know the criteria used picking these delegates.
Criteria used in picking the delegates. Well, the criteria was not defined by us, although I contributed to the discussion when the President invited us to the Council of State to deliberate over the modalities for the conference. But the federal government that's calling the conference set out the criteria. They want one elder statesman to come from each state. They also want every state to nominate 3 delegates, preferably on a senatorial basis, and also preferably with at least one woman. That's the criteria that we were given from the federal government. The government also wants each zone to have 15 members representing ethnic, what they refer to as ethnic nationalities and socio-cultural groups. And at the Council of State, the President asked the governors of each zone to coordinate the process of selection into that 15 nominations for the zone. And in the Southwest, what we decided to do was to choose 2 per state, making 12, and then 3 members on a generic basis. That was how we arrived at our own additional 2 names. But as I have always indicated, that's without prejudice to others who might have been selected by professional bodies who also have nominations and who may come from Ekiti. For example, the nominee for the National Youth Council for the Southwest happens to be from Ekiti, although he was not nominated because he's from Ekiti. But since he's an Ekiti man, we would also incorporate him into the Ekiti delegation as a very critical member of a segment that was not exactly represented in those that we selected for the representation in Abuja. So on the basis of the criteria that were given, I then consulted widely. I consulted the elders, I consulted the traditional authorities, I consulted religious bodies, and we managed to strike a balance there. We have, of course, this is Ekiti, so you have academics, quite a number of them on the list. We also have somebody who, by all accounts, has played a very critical role in the creation of this state as chairman of the Ekiti State Creation Movement at the time, Chief Olade Jefasun. And of course, we have Dr. Kunle Olajide, who has been very active on the Southwest basis in pushing for the Yoruba agenda as the secretary of the Yoruba Unity Forum, the Kenne group that some may be aware of. And of course, Oba Adamo Babalola is the chairman of our traditional council, and he also happens to be the only Muslim on the list. So we try to, as much as possible, it's very difficult in a state that is endowed with people who are qualified. Several people are qualified to be on this team. But at the end of the day, we made sure that it was not a partisan list. None of them is a member of any party, to the best of my knowledge. They are all very sound Ekiti people that are credible, that have always fought in the interest of Ekiti. And I believe we meet the criteria that was set.
Okay, Your Excellency, but the youth are saying that they are not represented.
I just answered that question by telling you that the representative of the National Youth Council for the Southwest, Ibukun Ajide, actually comes from Ekiti. We may not have directly nominated a member of that age bracket, but I was not unmindful of that. As a matter of fact, last week I brought the 6 representatives of youth in the entire federation. I brought them to Ekiti and organized a workshop for them. And I'm also helping them to set up a backroom office that will service their agenda at the national conference. I cannot be anti-youth. I have a lot of reasons to want to be on their side.
Yakub.
Yeah, very soon the INEC will be planned on political campaigns. So, as the governor of the state, what measure are you putting in place to ensure that we have each free? Because the flares we are getting from various political parties that the contest will be a very fierce one. And I know you are one of the contenders. We want to know the measure you are putting in place to that.
Well, fears does not mean violence. If by fears you mean that people are going to defend their position strongly in a very robust and very, very animated manner, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if it is verbal haulage of brickbats at one another, it may not be what we would ordinarily want, but that's in the nature of things when you are moving into electioneering, where I would wield the big stick as Chief Security Officer of the state, not as contender in any election, is when people cross the line and want to throw the peace and tranquility of the state into chaos. We have had a good run at it for the last 3.5 years. Ekiti has been largely peaceful, and all of us really should have an interest in peace reigning, so that all this saber rattling becomes an anticlimax at the end of the day, rather than a confirmation that this is a state of trouble when it comes to election. And I hope other contenders in the race would give peace a chance and allow the debates to be as fierce as possible, to be as contentious as possible, within the limits of the law. But I do not think there should be any basis for violence to be promoted. And those who want to do that, we all must rise up against them, citizens and government, to ensure that Ekiti is kept violence-free, both during and after the elections.
So people expect you to feature at the just concluded INEC election stakeholders meeting, but you did not see it. But from your own assessment, are you satisfied with the level of preparation of INEC towards this election?
Well, there's nothing that says I must be at the INEC stakeholder engagement. I was aware of it. I was actually in the state when they came, but I am not a party official. My party was strongly represented. The deputy national chairman of the party was there. The national vice chairman for the Southwest was there. The secretary of APC, the national secretary, was there. The state chairman and his own exco were also there. The DG of my campaign organization was present. So it was like I was there because a lot of my people were there, and they had cause to put forward our own position as far as the issues discussed were concerned. Am I satisfied? You know, I am always very wary to reach definitive conclusions at the level of preparation. The devil is always in the detail. When it comes to presentation, INEC is very good at it. INEC will give you all the necessary figures, they would do the demonstration. But remember what happened to General Buhari in the 2007 election, I believe now, when he went to INEC and saw the preparation, and he spoke too soon, he spoke too early, gave INEC 100% kudos for preparation, only to land with eggs on his face a few months down the line. I would argue that it is in INEC's best interest to ensure that this process is not only credible, but it is seen to be credible by all. And as we move into permanent voter registration period, as we move into continuous voter registration exercise, INEC must demonstrate to Ekiti people. Ekiti people are very sensitive because we have seen terrible performance on the part of INEC in this state. People of Ekiti have not forgotten the Ayoka episode. They've not forgotten Idosi. They've not forgotten all that transpired in the past. So they would expect INEC to really be above board and to demonstrate to all and sundry, all parties, all voters, all citizens, that they have no special interest beyond conducting a free, a fair, a credible election in Ekiti State that will be transparent to all and sundry, as indeed very credible. So I believe Mr. Jega has a very, very serious test in Ekiti, because if he fails in these and Osun elections, I'm not even sure he will be the one to conduct the 2015 election. And I would like to think he knows that, and he has admitted that much about the failures of an abracadabra, as I normally call it, now that we're moving to Ekiti. Ekiti is a different kettle of fish. We're very, very interested. We're not as detached as the people of Anambra, where they can afford to be detached. They have a lot of millionaires and manufacturers and whatever. Here, government appears to be the business of virtually everyone. So everyone is interested in what happens. and they want proper scrutiny to be displayed on all fronts.
Mr. Governor, sir, you recently sworn in the caretaker chairman of the council areas with a pledge that to conduct local government election before the end of this year. How visible is this, Your Excellency?
How
visible
it is? Well, I'm sure you know that that statement had a caveat, and you had removed the caveat from your question. What I said, and I happen to remember what I said very well, was that now that all the encumbrances, the legal encumbrances that have prevented elections from holding have been sorted out, it is our own expectation that local government elections will hold before the end of the year. That was the statement I made. So when you talk about feasibility, an expectation would be feasible on the basis of practical issues. If it is not feasible, it will not take place. But I would like to think that for us, we've always been committed to holding local government elections. And if you remember, it was because we had given the date of election when our friends on the other side went to court and got an injunction that stopped that election 2 days to the day it was going to hold in 2011. So it cannot be the fault of this government or lack of interest on our part when we have demonstrated that we wanted local government elections to hold, and the other parties, and as a product of the rule of law, I could have ignored it and just say, oh, you know, we want to do election, we'll do election. But I'm a product of the rule of law, and we must adhere to what the law court says. I mean, don't even forget, this is a state court. Ordinarily, people will tell you that the state court could not rule against the governor. But we had no issue with that. The state court ruled, and we made sure that we adhered to the ruling. And the election was postponed, and we had wanted to do these things. We have not been able to because of the legal issues.
Your Excellency, sir,
I want to ask my question next, then I'll come back to you. Still on election, and election is around the corner.
Yes.
And there's this scheme that you've been moving around. Actually, you've been meeting groups, and the claim says that you've been telling them sweet things that you want them to hear. That eventually, if you're given the mantle and you come back for second term, your true color will come out.
My true color?
Yes.
Olu, I would like to think I am one politician that people have come to realize what you see is what you get, even when it is not popular. I've always said that leadership is not a popularity contest. Leadership is about a vision and a mission and a delivery of programs to people. And I am not the type of governor that would pledge that everything is going to be goody-goody, and then when they come back, you begin to witness all manner of deceit and problems between the government and the people. The most difficult phase is over in Ekiti. Things that most first-time governors will not do, we have done it, especially in a civil service state like ours. That's what informed the integrated biometric payroll system that I did at a time that wasn't popular. But today, many of our workers are thankful that they get their own salary alert on the day the governor gets his own. Yes, this process has enabled us to remove those who ought not to be in the system from the system. And I have no apologies about that. I don't see any reason why somebody who is not a legitimate worker in Ekiti should be earning the sweat and toil of all of us. because it's our commonwealth. It's not Fahimi's money. It's our commonwealth. So if you do not have any legal and legitimate basis to be on the payroll of Ekiti, then you shouldn't. So if you have been removed in our biometric exercise, I have absolutely no apology to you. If we have blocked the leakage through which people used to siphon Ekiti money away, I also don't have any apology for you, because I am an Ekiti man. I know what Ekiti people are in terms of their values, of accountability, of integrity. So the day that an Ekiti man becomes dishonest and lacking in integrity and having no regard for values, they're over. As far as I am governor here, it will not happen, because I will also not do anything that would denigrate the office that I hold. There are people who don't find that palatable. There are people who are not happy that I have done some of these things. But I would rather do it and get it over with than pretend that I won't do it, as you have seen in some of the neighboring states, and once you get back, you then start sacking people for what really cannot be justified. We have not done that here. As a matter of fact, we have recruited more people into the public service than the people who have been thrown out for being ghost workers in the system. That clearly is the case. We have also increased the internally generated revenue of the state, not because we have increased taxes that people pay, but because we have plugged loopholes that ordinarily were the ones used to undermine the system. And don't forget, in 3 years we have increased workers' salary 3 times. On Wednesday, I shall be doing primary school teachers loans board, handing checks out to primary school teachers that they've never enjoyed, even when other people have enjoyed it in the state. So for me, what you see is what you get. I am not a machine politician. I always say that I have an alternative address, and it is not arrogance, it is just the fact. And I believe Ekiti people have come to appreciate that if I say it, my word is my bond. I would not say what I would not do, but whatever I say that I am going to do, you find it being done. And I always say to people, just take the 8-point agenda, which was my campaign platform 7 years ago, 2006, 2007, and take my inaugural speech on October 16, 2010, and look at it paragraph by paragraph. What is it that I said I would do that I have not done? For me, I think everything can be assessed.
Jacob.
Your Excellency, I want you to...
It's the turn of Jacob.
Mr. Governor, we learned that your government is planning to sell the state teaching hospital. So people allege that this government is planning to sell the state teaching hospital. So I want you to clear on this.
Does that make any sense? Even that statement. What is the basis for sale of Ekiti State Teaching Hospital? We have put more money into Ekiti State Teaching Hospital by way of subvention since I became governor. Ekiti State Teaching Hospital has had more by way of infrastructure development since I became governor. Ekiti State Teaching Hospital is receiving more support from government in a whole variety of areas. And not just Ekiti State Teaching Hospital, we're also doing the same all across the 18 general hospitals that are dotted all over the various local governments in this state. I think people are just mischievous, and when you have mischief makers, they believe that they can take advantage of some people's gullibility, but people are smarter than that. What they're calling sale of teaching hospital, we have an initiative on the diagnostic services. Diagnostic services, medical diagnostic services is not the hospital. It is a tiny part, an important part of assessing and detecting what is wrong with anybody who comes into an hospital. And many of the equipment used for this, they are extremely expensive. We've put some of them in the new Fumiola Inca Diagnostic Center. So we have an initiative with the International Finance Corporation. The International Finance Corporation is an arm of the World Bank that helps with public-private partnership. And we have agreed with them that the diagnostic service is a part of the teaching hospital that can benefit from that PPP arrangement. And this is something that is not unique to us. If you go to Ganifa Emi Hospital in Ondo, you find this there. If you go to the teaching hospital in Ilorin, Kwara State, you find it there. Every institution that wants sustainable services is approaching it from a perspective that these things can be available. What some would rather wish is for the X-ray machine, the CT scan to permanently break down so that they can take patients to their own X-ray machines outside. We're not going to accept that. That's why we're looking at that option. But this is a very, very tiny part of the entire service rendered by the teaching hospital. But this is not the only area where we're looking at PPP. We're looking at it in Ikogosi. We're looking at it in our bricks factory area, because government is not necessarily the best manager of many of these facilities at the end of the day.
Yes, Bidemi.
Your Excellency is about the Okada riders. Some people are saying that if you are re-elected into office, that will ban the operation of Okada in Ekiti State. What's the take on this, Your
People
Excellency?
say many things. You know, the difference between an incumbent governor and any putative aspirant who wants to get into office is that I am running on a record. It's a record you can challenge me on. You promised us you would do free education. You didn't do it. Huh? Okay, let's check it out, whether I did it or not. You promised that you're going to revive Ikogosi. We have not seen it. You promised that all all roads in Ekiti will be connected in a motorable fashion. We think you have only done 10%, or you've done so. I can be measured in an objective, detached assessment. But talk is cheap. Anybody who wants to run against me can promise El Dorado. But if people will judge them, if this man has been able to do all of what he has done on the meager resources available to Ekiti, the devil we know is better than the saint who is claiming that he wants to come and do this. But substantively on your issue of Okada, I do not know where. And I think I come here at least once a month since I became governor on Meet Your Governor program. And I speak at different fora across the state regularly. I also do town hall meetings and village square meetings since I became governor. I challenge anyone to bring out a recording or a statement where I said I was going to ban Okada riders in the state. Of course, it's the product of mischief. I have not said it anywhere. I will not say what I would not do. However, I have consistently expressed my concern for safety of Okada riders and their passengers. And I have warned that I expect them to obey traffic laws. I expect them to also ensure that they protect themselves and their passengers. And I've gone ahead to even provide helmets for them in order to be able to protect them. So This I also do for other motor transport workers. It's not just for them. I do it for those who ride Keke Fahemi in both the urban areas and in the rural communities. So there is no basis for this, because I think they render a service. It's a service that our people appreciate by moving them from one to B. If we're going to do this, then we will make an alternative transportation arrangements that would also not be detrimental to the business that the Okada riders have in the state. But we have not even reached that level yet. So I don't see any basis for any fears to be entertained by Okada. And they came to me a couple of days ago, and I reassured them, and I believe that on their part they're beginning to see that those who are peddling this rumor are just trying to create disaffection between themselves and the government of Ekiti State.
Yes, Your Excellency, we've exhausted our time, but I'd rather we quickly run through the messages that we have. Your Excellency, sir, please don't forget your promise to assist us on drainage channels at Adekunle area, Afao Road. We nearly lost a screwboy to flood in the area 3 weeks ago. Chief Ayo Ajayi, Ekiti. And the deployment of local government staff to TESCOM authorities are yet to implement your directives in respect of our salaries and status, Mr. Ademola. And one says, Mr. Governor, sir, please, what is your government doing about the moribund Ekiti Now newspaper? Secondly, why does the government seem to feel comfortable taking its printing job outside the state when the printing press could have been revived to save expenses and also boost internally generated revenue? Yemi Oyewale, do you respect to the three before?
Let me start from the last. I think some people always try to forge issues, especially when they have personal interest. That's not unexpected. The question I will ask Mr. Oyewale is, what was the internally generated revenue profile of Ekiti State Printing Press in the last 10 years? Is it in profit or deficit? Nevertheless, we still give jobs to Ekiti State Printing Press. More often than not, when we give them job, they subcontract the job to outside operators. There is a whole lot of work that is being done on restructuring the Ekiti State Printing Press, and I believe that would answer the question that Mr. Oyewale has asked about. The second question there is about drainage at Adekunle area in Afao. Well, this is something that we're generally interested in. Even last week, I was in Abuja with the Honorable Commissioner for the Environment on trying to get resources to tackle the erosion and flood situation before rain really breaks out. So I want to assure Mr. Ajayi that if I made that promise, I'm a promise keeper. I'm going to make sure that we attend to the drainage situation there. But you would also have noticed that in all the local governments, we're doing a lot of dredging of channels now, just to clear the pathway for water so that it doesn't lead to flooded situations in our communities. Yeah, and then finally, Mr. TESCOM, who want to know why the redeployment has not been effected. To the best of my knowledge, the redeployment from local government to TESCOM has been implemented. I don't know the specifics of what the gentleman, Mr. Ademola, meant, but I know that the directive has been implemented in terms of moving them. These are the NCA graduates who were working in the local governments before, and many of them actually opted to go into teaching because it offers them the opportunity to really be treated along the lines of their scheme of service, which was not recognized at the level of the local government. So I believe that's happening, but I can find out more details for Mr. Ademola later.
And finally, sir, we want you to assist those of us who were disengaged from the former Ekiti mass transit. Government promised to give us our gratuity when the system collapsed in 2004. Please, sir, if you can assist us, it will go a long way in empowering our members and families of those that have passed on. And the second one, please, Your Excellency, don't forget your promise for all cooperative societies in the state. Elder Olaleye.
No, we wouldn't. The process is on, and the cooperative societies will hear from us very soon. The promise was that we were going to, in partnership with the Bank of Agriculture, make available monies in the region of about 600 million. 300 from us, 300 from the Bank of Agriculture, and we are working on that. Our Ministry of Rural Development and the Ministry of Agriculture are putting finishing touches on that agenda. As per the Ekiti mass transit writer, well, I've had the request. We would put it into consideration.
Yes, I think that's a destination point. We really thank you for taking time out of your tight schedule to come again today, Your Excellency.
Thank you.
Next month, it will be the Yoruba edition of Meet Your Governor, Gomino Shalaye. And I have to thank my colleagues too for coming and asking the questions from the governor. And also I have to thank those who are on the entourage of Mr. Governor to the studio. I'll start with the CPS, Mr. Inka Oyebode. Thanks for coming. Elders Aduwale Ayaga and Idowu Adebiyi, members, board of BSCS, thanks for coming. Alhaji Mojid Jamiu, Director General, Broadcasting Service of Ekiti State, thanks for being there. Mrs. Gloria Toba, GMNTA at Ekiti. Pastor Dari Olorunfemi, outgoing GM Progress FM at Ekiti. Mr. Martin Sayola, GM Adaba FM, thanks for coming. Mr. Fedayo Shayo, SSA Media. Mr. Odunayo Ugumola, SA Media. Mr. Babs Daramola, SA Media. And I have to say thanks for staying tuned with Mr. Governor as he's giving accounts of how he has been running your affair for you. We'll be back next month for another episode. Thanks for joining us.
When we talk of a democracy that is truly people-oriented, the Dr. John Kaudifayemi administration has more than delivered. In the implementation of his administration's 8-point agenda, a lot of ground has been covered. Running of a participatory and all-inclusive government, infrastructure development for the good of our people, modernizing agriculture to create jobs for the teeming youths in the state, a positive turnaround of our education sector, free and qualitative health care for children, the physically challenged, pregnant women and the aged, resuscitation of moribund industry for the economic revival of our state, development of our tourist centers to international standard, gender equality and empowerment, under which our elderly receive monthly allowances. This is truly the era of see and feel. There is no doubt JKF is piloting Ekiti to a new level. Our leader, you continue to draw the line between selfless service and selfish leadership. Ilufemiloye Ekiti will never forget your legacy. JKF, the vision continues.
Your heart, you can't get up, you can't stay down. You think this must be the end of the line. But I'm here by your side, holding on, holding tight. Come on friend, let's move on to a higher place. Jello, ọmọ kìí sojo, ṣe bólúborí ni wá, a ó borí dandan o. Má ṣe sùn, má ṣe rẹ̀wẹ̀sì, má ṣiyèméjì rárá, ọ̀rẹ́ mi má ṣe.